All right, Hornady critical defense, 357 Magnum versus 9mm. We're going to do a complete ballistics test here because we're using pretty much all the typical barrel lengths, or at least barrel lengths that'll really give a good difference between two different types of guns. Like we have our 2-inch Taurus 605 and our 4-inch Smith & Wesson 686 for the 357 Magnum. This gives us kind of like duty power versus what we would see in a concealed carry size handgun. And 9mm, we got our 5-inch M&P versus our 3.2-inch G2C, pretty much our duty size gun versus a concealed carry size gun. And our 357 Magnum is a 125 grain FTX, and our 9mm is a 115 grain FTX. Now, what I really like about this ammo is it's going to kind of give us just an average overview of the difference between 357 Magnum and 9mm. And I always enjoy these tests because there's been a lot of people, including some pretty popular gun channels, that have suggested that 9mm can be as powerful as 357 Magnum. Now, I'm not saying 9mm is a bad cartridge, and when you put it up to a plus P and a 5-inch barrel, you're getting up to close to what some 357s can get in a short barrel, but yeah, it's not exactly as it sounds. So I'm going to do this test here today with these two rounds. We're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. And then I'm going to do my clear ballistics test. We have 4 layers of denim here, and we have about 3 inches of clear ballistics, followed by 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent like our ribs or sternum hit, and then more clear ballistics. Typically this takes away about 2 inches of clear ballistics if the bullets expand exactly the same, which they pretty much never do. But full metal jacket and exactly expanding hollow points, that's about the resistance it takes away. So what I want to do is I want to do some shots with the MDF and without the MDF to kind of represent like a ribs or sternum shot versus a gut shot, and see what the difference are with these cartridges. And then I'm going to fire from just 25 yards today at my steel silhouette. You know, 25 yards isn't that far, but it sometimes gives you a little bit of idea what's going on with that ammo. So let's get started with this test. All right, we are about 5 yards from the target, 4 yards from the chronograph. First up, we have our 9mm and our 5-inch barrel. It is rated at 1135 feet per second. Typically, a 9mm, that's through a 4-inch barrel. But let's see how close we get to 1135 feet per second in my 5-inch barrel. 1171, 1176, 1174. 1175, 1171. Very consistent velocities overall. I wasn't expecting to see that good of consistency and accuracy to the center of the target. So let's see how our shorter barrel compares to that. All right, Taurus G2C. We're shaving off almost 2 inches of barrel. Let's see what kind of velocity we get. 1095. 1093, 1074, 1098, 1081, and again the consistency of that velocity is pretty good. Let's see how our 357 compared. All right, 357 Magnum. Strange with this round is they rated at 1500 feet per second through an 8-inch barrel, which is unrealistic because I don't know of any 357 Magnum revolvers that are not like old or custom. They're not that are an 8-inch barrel. So through our 4-inch barrel, let's see how close we get to 1500 feet per second. Typically, you know, 1430 is what we should expect with a typical Magnum. So let's see what we get with this. 1417, 1445, 1411, 1442, 1421. So that's actually relatively consistent and about like your typical 357 Magnum. So let's see how our snub nose does. All right, snub nose 357 and a 2-inch barrel. We typically shave off about 200 feet per second off from what we get with 4-inch barrels. So let's see what we get. 1237, 1240, 1264, 1227, 1253. and our consistency is a little bit less. But one thing I do notice about this round, it has almost no recoil compared to most 357 Magnum rounds, as far as I can tell. The recoil is pretty mild, actually. So I don't know what they did to make that happen. So let's hit our ballistics gel block with all these and see what we get. All right, first up we have our 9mm and our 5-inch barrel through our medium density fiber board. So let's see what we get. All right, for some reason that exited out the side, which is interesting because it hit, center enough for that not to happen. I've noticed that with this pistol. It seems like, I don't know if it's a rifling or what, it's pushing everything to the left typically. So let me hit a little more center with the 5-inch and see what we get. All right, so we're at 11 inches damage path, which would typically be about 13 inches without the MDF. So let's try our 3-inch barrel, and we'll go through the MDF with that, and we'll see how that does. All right, 3-inch barrel, we'll go up above that, see what we get. So what we're looking at there is a significantly different thing going on. We did not get any expansion from what I can tell, and we're at about 18 1/4, which would be about 20 1/4 typically. So let's take out our MDF. Let's get that out of the way. We see what this 9mm will do with our quote-unquote gut shot, and we'll see how it compares to this. All right, up above that, we'll do our 5-inch barrel with no MDF. See what we get. And what we're looking at there is really good performance. We're looking at a little bit over the 13 inches, the normal equation that I was saying, probably because the expansion is a little bit different, but what we're looking at is about 13 3/4. So overall, when we look at the 5-inch barrel, this is actually perfect, and we're not getting that much penetration, certainly very far away from over penetration. So let's see what our 3.2-inch barrel will do. All right, 3.2-inch barrel with no MDF. Let's see what we can get here. And it looks the same as it did with the MDF. From here, it almost looks like our intersecting paths, but it's not, because their angles we're looking at is different from the front, from the top. And we're about 1/2 inch over, and then goes to about 1 inch wider to the left. So what we're seeing here is the same thing, but if we look at this through just the ballistics gel, we're only looking at 18 1/2. So that's not significant over penetration, even though we didn't get expansion. So it's not too bad overall. Let's see how our 357 does. All right, 357 mag through our MDF. Let's see what this will do. A lot of stuff going on here, a lot of shock to that block there, but what we're looking at is about 13 3/4, so that would typically be about 15 3/4. So let's move on to our 2-inch barrel with our MDF and see how that does. All right, 2-inch barrel with our MDF. Let's see what this will do. All right, so what we're looking at there is just a little bit more penetration. We're at about 14 1/2, which would typically be about 15 1/2. So the difference between our longer and our short barrels is a lot closer on a revolver round in our 357 than what it is in the 9mm. So let's go through our quote-unquote gut shot with no MDF with the 4-inch and 2-inch barrel up here, and let's see what we get. All right, 4-inch barrel through our quote-unquote gut shot. Let's see what we get. And that's interesting because our damage path is a little bit less than with the MDF, but our bullets are exactly the same place as what it was with the MDF. That is weird. So we're looking at 13 inches even. That's pretty ideal as far as not getting too much over penetration. So let's see how our 2-inch barrel does with our gut shot. All right, 2-inch barrel. Let's see what we can get with this. All right, we came really close to our quote-unquote wound track and hitting the bullet, but we did not. It's not touching. And what we're seeing here, this is interesting. You know, 4 different barrel lengths. We're looking at, again, we're at 13 and a quarter damage path. So that's really just very impressive. We have 2 different barrel lengths, MDF and non-MDF, all stopping in the same spot. As where with our 9mm, our MDF shots, you know, totally different. And with our just plain gel between 5 and 5, totally different. So overall, this 357 Magnum's ballistic performance is a lot more consistent. So let's shoot from 25 yards and just see what kind of practical accuracy we can get with these rounds. All right, 25 yards from the target. I'm just gonna aim carefully center mass, shoot a little bit slower than I typically shoot, just to try to get a really good idea of the potential of these rounds. So rather than try to show my skill, I just want to show what these guns will do. So let's see what we get with our 5-inch barrel with our critical defense. Center mass. All right, I suppose not too bad. Let's see what I can do with the 357 Magnum. All right, not too bad. Let's move on to our short barrels. All right, G2C. I have one last round because I had that one go out the gel block, but let's see what we can get with this. All right, snub nose. All right, pretty good overall. So I probably don't have to explain really what the outcome of this is, other than it's all pretty decent. But that 357 Magnum, that is one of the most impressive 357 Magnums I have seen for 3 reasons. One, our recoil wasn't that high in the snub nose, just a 20-ounce Taurus snub. You know, typically we should have just this massive recoil. It wasn't that bad. And 2, we had good power. We had a good power factor. It's in with average power factor and really consistent velocities. And 3, which is number 1 here, is that very consistent gel block performance through MDF and not MDF. It seems like it just did completely excellent. So it seems like no matter what barrel length you have, if you have a 2-inch, 3-inch, and a 4-inch, it's going to perform perfectly. Now if you have a 6-inch, you might have a little more fragmentation and, you know, less penetration, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because we were getting pretty adequate penetration. With our 9mm, did excellent in the 5-inch barrel, a little bit less consistent through different barriers, through, you know, MDF and not MDF. And in our short barrel, we didn't see any expansion that I could really see. So that's what you get today, pretty decent ammunition. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.